Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous, hosted by Bruce Hutchin. I'm so happy you've joined us today, and you're going to find out a lot about whitetail hunting on the show. This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, episode number 361. On today's episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, we're going to join with Nick Percy. Now, Nick is the owner of Killer Food Plots. Nick likes to say, when you put it down, it's got to grow or something's wrong. Otherwise, you reap what you sow. Nick's been in the food plot business, seed business for a long time, folks, and you're going to pick up some key focus points on springtime, summer, fall, and the most important of all, what are you feeding them in the winter? Nick Percy's got some great tips. Listen up. It's never too early to think about food plots. Whitetail Rendezvous has an ebook for you. Just simply text 33444 food plot to get your copy. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. And this is Bruce Hutchin, and you won't believe where I'm sitting. Yes, I'm sitting in a 78,000 four-wheel drive 2017 Dodge. This is my sound room at Iowa Deer Classic. And folks, you're in for a treat. Mr. Nick Percy of Killer Food Plots is my guest this afternoon. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bruce. Good to be here.
Say, Nick, what's so killer about Killer Food Plots?
Well, we have some pretty cool, unique products that we've been using for many years. Our Border Patrol, our Deep Woods blend, just the quality of our products as far as the germination and the palatability, meaning the deer's ability to use what they eat and benefit from it. You would think they'd all be the same, but they certainly aren't. Not all species are created equal.
Well, wait a minute, but seed is seed, right? And some seeds have fillers and some seeds have coating so they can put in a drill. So all seeds aren't created equal.
That is correct. They are not.
So once a guy told me that most of all the seeds sold at places like this are grown on one or two farms. Is that correct?
There are a accumulation of farms throughout the U.S. and outside of the U.S. that grow seed. So not all companies buy their seed from the U.S. Some buy it outside, New Zealand, other areas, other countries that grow seed, and they import it in and use it in their seed mixes. We try to always buy 100% U.S. grown seed. We've got long-term relationships with several of our seed growers out west, our Texas seed growers, Florida. So most of our seed is bought or is grown right here in the U.S. Market. The only time we've ever put anything outside of the U.S. is when there's a shortage or we have a drought like we had in 2012. That was a rough year. But yeah, 100% grown in the U.S. seed, and the quality of our seed separates us from anybody in the industry. That's a big thing.
Let's talk about that, because you can go up and down the roads here at Iowa Deer Classic, and there's a lot of people selling seed. There's a lot of people selling blocks. There's a lot of people selling things to help me grow bigger deer.
Correct.
So how does that all shake out?
Well, when we are selecting our seed varieties, the species of the plant, that dictates the forage that's going to be produced. The forage, thin forage is better than thick, heavy forage. So in our brassica blends, they're a lettuce variety, much like a romaine lettuce leaf, as opposed to a big rubbery cabbage leaf. We're talking about rape, turnips, radishes. You want very, very thin, usable, and able to be broken down in that ruminant system of a whitetail. They're very inefficient. I'll be honest with you, Bruce, a lot goes in one end and out the back door. So you really need to dial in. And in raising whitetails for almost 11 years in high fence, we really dialed in our nutritional program as far as our green growing, our natural native vegetation, and our supplemental high protein, vitamin, mineral feed that we provide called Core Infusion. So
now, are you still growing deer? Are you still a deer farmer?
No, I had to choose between taking care of 50 whitetails, which are like having a bunch of 2.5-year-old children, or traveling the country and working with a lot of diverse customers or diverse climate with a lot of different customers. And I love that. My wife and I travel quite a bit. Do about 60,000 miles a year right now. Goodness. So we get out, we manage properties from Canada, the UP, out west, all the way out east, and we kind of funnel down through the southern area and we branch off to Texas and Florida. So
What do you mean by managed properties?
so what we do is we have a full timber management crew. So we selectively mark the timber, market the timber, get multiple mills to come in, bid on the timber, and then we manage all the selective timber cut to improve the quality of the land, the cover, understory for both food and cover for the deer and other wildlife benefit as well. But then we bolster and create a cash flow for our customer, and then we're trying to set up age structure within the timber and different age structure of the trees to produce food, produce cover, and then produce a cash flow every 10 to 15 years for the customer. Because when you have a piece of property, it's more than just for hunting. It's more than just for putting a house on it. If you manage that resource that you have, it's a liquidatable asset. It's part of your investment portfolio, and that's kind of a different idea for people. They don't always think about their property like that. And there's a lot of trees, a lot of cash potential in a piece of property when it's managed well. And if it's been mismanaged, we've got to get that back in sync and make sure that we are improving, yearly on that property.
So you're managing the property for investment, or are you managing it for deer so they can have larger deer in a balanced herd, or is it all a composite of what you do?
Both of those things are important, because if you own a piece of property, you're paying nowadays, property's pretty expensive. Your taxes certainly aren't going down. So you're paying a lot of money in taxes, and it's really important to maximize your investment. And God forbid anything happened where you needed to liquidate to get cash flow without losing your home or losing, your lifestyle or whatever, that timber is an available part of your investment portfolio. You can liquidate X amount of trees to produce a good cash flow to pay for something that you need, or if you needed a surgery, or if you need, whatever that happens to be. But we are always focused on portfolio and habitat when we're managing. And what I mean by that is we don't just take all the high quality, high grade timber. We're managing low dollar, not a whole lot of value in the timber. Your popple trees, for instance, are a perfect example. For every popple tree or every aspen tree you cut, you get about 15 to 20 whips or new saplings. That is producing a lot of forage and browsing potential from 7 foot down to the ground as that reproduces. And that's what whitetails need, from 7 foot to the ground. That's where you need to provide food. And then that cover and that thickening of a piece of property is vital if you want the deer to live on your property. It can't be wide open like a park effect where you can see through with a giant umbrella canopy above.
It can't be a canopy forest, because
right.
Everybody's been in big woods and you can see for a quarter mile. Exactly. Yeah, you can shoot deer there because they're moving through there.
Yep. But they're usually moving fast.
They're moving through there.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Yep.
So, okay, so we got the land management or land portfolio management piece. Now, how does Kill the Food Plots maximize that for you?
Well, so I have a timber manager that's part of my crew, and we have actual crew that cut trees, and we try to manage that to the benefit of the customer. So what we would do is we go meet with the customer, walk the property, figure out what their goals and objectives are, share our experiences over the last 35 years. My timber manager has been doing this 35 years. I've been doing this 27 years, and we look at it from both perspectives, from the value, quality, and management of the timber, as well as the habitat we're trying to create to draw in the maximum amount of wildlife activity and creating that understory for whitetails, specifically for whitetails, but a lot of other things benefit. We put those two things together. We go through and selectively scale the trees. So we measure the trees, write down all the species. We make sure that we get our what are called board footage out of that tree. So we're measuring the tree chest high. We're looking at the quality of the tree, how many branches are coming off at what length. So how many 8-foot sticks, 10-foot sticks, 12-foot sticks can we get out of that tree? What is the quality of that timber? And we record all of that. Then we get a hold of the multiple mills, and they come in and they competitively bid to win that job or win that timber. They have to put their numbers together, what they're willing to pay. And then we bring that back to our client, and we lay it all out. So normally the highest bidder is what our customer is going with, but sometimes it has to do with timing. Sometimes our customer doesn't want to cut right away because we're encouraging them not to cut immediately because the value of the timber is down. So soft maple for several years was real low. Now it's climbed up and to be some of the best money you've ever received for soft maple. now we're having those customers cut so that we can maximize their dollar out of their timber.
That's like having a variable annuity or something in the financial thing. You're going to sell it the best possible time.
Yep. And now that doesn't always work. Some customers are like, I don't care about the money of the trees. Just get me what you can. At the end of the day, I just want habitat. I want to start building that habitat first and foremost, drawing, deer into the property, being able to support and grow a healthy deer herd, big bucks, and be able to be successful. So, there's a wide span. It really comes down to what our clients' goals and objectives are. And then we try to put a custom plan together that gets them there as quickly as possible.
How do people get a hold of you? So somebody out there in North America saying, I like how Nick's talking. How do they get in touch with you?
They can go to our website at killerfoodplots.com. There's a contact us page. They can fill out their name, number, contact information. There's a comments box. Put in there kind of what they're looking for or when the best time is to get a hold of them, and hit send. That'll send it to us. Send them a message to let them know it was successful, and then we'll give a follow-up phone call.
Now, what if you come on my farm in Wisconsin and we do all this stuff and they go, I don't think so, Nick, for whatever reason.
Yep.
So you put in all those hours.
Mm-hmm.
You've given me my timber. You've given me the food plot. You've given me, where I need to put some water holes, the whole shebang.
Mm-hmm.
And if I say no go,
that's fine. We charge a consult fee to come out to the property.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yep. To just evaluate timber. If it's relatively close to where we are in Michigan, we don't charge for that. If we're coming out to do an actual property consult, we have a base fee for that, and then based on the distance that we're traveling. But I'm always looking at the economics of my customer as well. So if we've got multiple jobs in Wisconsin, then we try to set that up with those different clients, and they can share the cost of our travel expense, so not each one of them isn't getting hit over the
right.
that cost. We spread it over, and a lot of our clients, we have a lot of past clients in areas, and they become friends, and we share a beverage or a burger, and a lot of times we're able to go hang out with them and visit them along the way as well. So it's a benefit for everybody. We want that long-term relationship with our customer.
That's great. And folks, you're hearing a little bit different slice. I'm trying to think of the land managers that I've had on, and forgive me if you've run the show, but I can't remember somebody that's been articulate like Nick has. And this is a huge industry, and if you own land, you've got certain things. You get ag value, and then you get timber value. And if you're not looking at the timber value as a renewable resource, just like a renewable annuity or a CD at your bank, you might be missing out. So, hey, give Nick a call. He'll have a phone conversation. If it's worthwhile for him and you, then get together. Now, saying that, let's go back to when you think the food plot mania began. Give me some history on that.
Well, back in 1988 is when the first, quote-unquote, first food plot company was established for white-tailed deer. And I worked with that company for about 12 years, but it was an evolution. It started more in the south and kind of moved to the north. I'll be honest, in Michigan, I bet you I'd say it's probably 10 to 12 years new. The idea of doing food plotting versus buckets of bait and piles of bait.
Right.
We've had a couple generations of that's how they hunt. And, people have had to evolve as baiting has become outlawed by our local DNR agencies. It's also, people's mindsets are changing. They're more invested. They're more educated because of the internet, more available resources. There's companies like myself who are willing to come out and do consults and help them answer their questions and set them up to be successful at what they're doing. So it's people are more involved as families going out and doing food plots, or buddies are going out and going in together on properties, and they can really make a difference in their deer, and they want to do that. So,
it's a huge. If you had to put a number together, the food plot business, the seed people, the equipment people. I mean, there's so many people involved in it. How many billions of dollars do you think it's worth?
Yeah, the hunting industry is worth several billion. It's a big industry to the point where it's getting the attention of a lot of legislation is being passed and good things are happening because they're finally recognizing the economics in the hunting industry and the voice that we need to have in the decisions that are being made in our with our DNR and our management within the states we live. And we are getting a voice and we are making progress, which is phenomenal. For the longest time, we was brushed to the side as whatever. But what we're seeing, and there was a really great report that came out from the ATA show and Archery Trade Association show. They did a really great article on that and the voice that we finally have as a hunting community. It's phenomenal to see that. We've really put a brand, start talking billions of dollars, and people are paying attention to what we're doing. So,
yeah, if you don't know about ATA, Archery Trade Association, Jay McManus is the executive director, been a guest on the show. But if you're involved, I don't care if you just go buy an arrow or you're a small business in the archery thing, you should be a member of ATA. Why? Because it supports everything we're doing. And I heard when I was at ATA in January, $47 billion industry. Folks, and there's approximately 11 million of us, $47 billion is huge. I'm part of that industry. I'm part of outdoor media, and you've got to be today. You got to stay abreast of what's happening in the political side. One and two, if you're not involved with your local DNR, then you really don't have any say. You need to get a seat at the table. I talked to somebody about that the other day, and we have to become more involved because we bring a lot of value to our community.
Absolutely,
no question about it. So let's talk about it's February, whatever, 4th. What should I be doing on my farm right now as far as food plots are concerned?
Well, you should be scouting. You should be, going out and figuring out where your deer are at. How are they utilizing your property? How looking for sheds. That's always a fun time of the year. Our spring seems to be coming very quickly. I'm a little concerned, honestly, because even in Michigan, where I'm from, we do not have snow on the ground right now. And it's very, very warm there. These early springs kind of bring me back to 2012 when it was like 90 degrees by April, and that's tough on a lot of your native vegetation. It's tough on a lot of your farmers and your fruit farmers. If we get this lapse where we're warm and then we go back and shock our fruit trees, it's a big impact to you and me because we're buying those fruits, we're buying those vegetables. Our deer are relying on Mother Nature for a lot of their food, and that's critical food to them. And when there's a serious shock to the system, or we don't get a deep thaw or we don't get a deep freeze, and our thaw comes early, that affects the production of our natural food for our whitetails, and we'll see that carry out throughout the year if we start getting too hot too early and don't realize that, or if we have lack of moisture. Honestly, the last couple springs we've almost needed Noah's Ark to surpass or get through our food plots, and especially 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and 2 years ago was a pretty wet spring again, but the beauty of that is we have had some fairly consistent rains throughout the summer months, which is a beautiful thing. So we're constantly getting water and native vegetation as well as our food plots. Because most people don't have sprinklers in their food plots. So our species of plantings that we put in for spring, summer are very drought tolerant. They do very well with a limited amount of sun.
What do you recommend planting in the spring?
So for our you can start your perennials in the spring. Like right now, we're gearing up. You asked me the question. We're gearing up for frost seeding. So we can frost seed our resurrection clover, our KFP chicory, and our cold play mixes can go in shortly after that. Once the frost is out of the ground and we're not going to hit those super low temps, we get our cold play, which is our whitetail turkey mix, in the ground. If you're frost seeding, what that means is, there's still frost in the ground, or your weather pattern. Now we're in Iowa, so we don't really have a lot of frost in the ground down here. It's been pretty warm, but you're going to go through that cold temps, cold snaps, warm up to 65, 70 degrees, and then drop back down to 20 degrees. This is the time you can start frost seeding, getting that seed out on the ground and allow Mother Nature, between the rains and the sun and the rain, to establish a food plot a perennial food plot, meaning it comes back every year, to establish that food plot without having to turn the soil, getting the fertilizer. With that said, you want to make sure you're not putting it out there where you have a lot of grass and weeds already. So if you have a brassica plot where you've got a clean slate, where that's shaded out any grass and weeds, you've turned it in years past, and you're ready to flip it or transition it out of a annual food plot and put it into a perennial, this is the great time to do that.
So then once we do that, so now it's May, June, July. What are we doing now on my farm?
So what we have a product called Border Patrol, and it's a screening product. I've been using it for 17 years. It creates a very thick, dense wall. We plant it usually on the perimeter of our food plots, about 10 foot wide. We create the openings for the deer to move in and out. We direct traffic with it. We wrap the perimeter of the food plot, and then we put interior walls that are partial walls that make the deer walk side to side, full length. We create pinch points, barriers, and it minimizes predation too from coyotes, wolves, cougars, and bobcats. They won't chase through the thick wall, but the deer can disappear through that like Casper the Ghost. It's pretty cool to watch it happen on video. You have your camera set up.
Yeah,
all of a sudden they're chasing, they're going by. Both here comes the deer, here comes the coyotes. And then the deer blows through the wall, and the coyotes kind of stand around like, where did they go?
Is that like Egyptian?
No, Egyptian wheat is something we started with. We did Egyptian. We've done different sorghum, Sudans, corn. We've tried a lot of different things. And the problem with the Egyptian wheat is it's not structurally sound. So when you get big, heavy winds, it tips over. We've put together our KFP foundation, which acts like the 6x6s of the wall to keep it strong and sturdy, even when we get the big winds or the early light snow. It stays standing, and then we use our it's a variety of Sudan in combination with our foundation that creates a thick wall. But we are one of the only companies in the industry that has food in our screening, and we're the only company that has 40% food. So most people cannot afford to give up footprint within their food plot to just screening. So they're planting maybe half acre or acre food plots, and they don't have that 10 foot around the perimeter to give up. But I will tell you, screening will change your success. It will change the daytime movement of your deer in and out of your food plots. But we provide food so that in that 20% climbing vining pea, our KFPP, and it will climb up 7 foot tall. It's fully edible. The entire vine, the leaf, it's a non-pod producer, but it's mid-20s protein. And our forage soybeans, again, are the other 20% of the food in the mix. And that is a big, thin leaf, mid-20s, again, production protein food source. It's awesome for your does. It's great for your bucks. It's one of the very first food sources that your fawns are able to break down and metabolize in their body after they're weaned from mom, because they don't immediately go out there and start eating Mother Nature's food source. They're going in one end and out the other, in one end and out the other. And that growth, that rapid growth they were on from mom's milk, they kind of do a downward trend. So making sure you're providing that is critical.
When you were talking about the maze, I'll just call it.
Yep.
You create a maze, and that knocks down predation. I get that.
Yep.
But the other thing I heard, you could create pinch points, and you could basically, just like hinge cutting, you can decide how that deer is going to go on what side of the tree or the other.
Yep, that's correct. And so when we do that, in addition to funneling the deer and pinching them, we also create hunter hallways with it, where our hunter is able to walk down that hallway with a wall on either side, or to use the perimeter and between the timber and the wall in the food plot, just outside the drip line of the trees or where the branches hang over, is where we plant that wall out in the field. Now we're creating a hallway between the trunk of the tree, if you will, and the inside of the wall. So it creates a hallway. And if you people know what licking branches are that hang down, sometimes they have scrapes under them. It's got the dangling branch. Well, we implement as many of those licking branches as we can, and we refer to them as fire hydrants for deer. They use them 365 days a year.
And they do.
Yeah, and this is does and bucks. A lot of people don't realize. They think they only use them during pre-rut, rut, and post-rut. That's their communication means, and they're constantly lipping and leaving their saliva, and that identifies who they are within that deer herd. And every doe and every buck, they know who they are. If an intruder comes in and starts leaving that, or a new buck, interjects himself into an area, those bucks are marching around, running them out at prime time, alpha does are very territorial. So if they have an influx of a new alpha doe, the war is going to be on. So
Yeah,
yep.
it's amazing, folks, when you sit down and have conversations with people like Nick. All of a sudden, you hear things that, gee, I didn't know that. And that's one of the things I love about whitetail rendezvous. All different types of people, but we're all helping each other get smarter about one raising deer in the wild, balance herds, and then in the end, hunting them and putting them on the table. Um, I think it's so much fun because I've heard some words from you, Nick, that I haven't heard before. Or maybe they were said before, but I didn't hear them. And that's the other thing that we have to keep refreshing ourselves and say, okay, what are we doing? How are we doing it? So now it's August, September, October. What am I doing with my food plots now?
As we transition into the end of summer, we're again is a great time to put in perennial food plots. Your weeds and grass are winding down. It's easy to control them and kill them. Mother Nature has this way of every 30 days producing a new weed in your food plot, and not all weeds are bad. So people get frustrated.
I thought that was when Monsanto flies over and does that.
Yeah, right. So, but Mother Nature is producing about every 30 to 45 days a new weed or a new food source for wildlife. And again, not every weed is a bad situation. Thistle, yeah, you don't want that in your food plots, but there's some other types of weeds that are not detrimental. And I know I'm a bit OCD when it comes to my food plots and my whitetail management, but sometimes I just have to recognize that I can't at least immediately deal with every single weed. What I can tell you when you're dealing with grass and weeds is you just want to mow and manage or weed whack to keep those from going to seed head, because then they're not producing 10,000 more seeds in your food plot. And another key point that I talk about when we do seminars is disc or rototill at the same depth for every year that you're turning your food plot. You're loosening your soil. It's less compacted. And if you don't set and hold the depth of your disc or your tiller, you're going to continue to sink deeper and deeper. And when you do that, you're turning grass and weed seedlings up to the surface, and they're going to end up germinating and producing. If you say you pick 10 inches of your soil or 8 inches of a depth, that's what you want to till and disc every year. Because within 2 seasons, 2 full years, you should be able to eradicate all the grass and weed seedlings that are in there from turning.
I hope you heard that, folks, because another little, key tip from Nick, it was set your level 6 inches. You'll figure it out what you can do, but then stay with that, because then you don't let the other seeds germinate.
Dormant grass and weed seedlings that are laying underneath the soil.
I'm spinning my mind around that, and that makes complete sense, because if you go down there, okay, you're taking that next layer up.
Yep, and you're turning it up to the surface. The same thing is true then when you go to plant. So if you're going to plant something like our Border Patrol, or you're going to plant beans, peas, buckwheat, sugar beets, larger seeds. The larger seeds, when your seed bed is all worked up and fluffy, that's when you're going to broadcast out your larger seed, your oats, same thing, and you harrow drag them in. Okay, so harrow drag with the teeth down. You want to drag them in once. Then you want to either cultipack or use a yard roller to pack the seed bed on your plot. The reason you want to do that is when you work the soil, you're taking oxygen from the air and working it down into the seed bed itself, which the plant later is going to seek out that oxygen in within the soil. You're creating pockets, openings, and voids in your soil, especially in clay. It's important to break it up so it's not dense, because clay will suffocate the roots or suffocate your plant. You want to work in some organic matter and get that broken up. Then when you pack the surface, and whether it's sandy, loamy, heavy moist soil, or clay, or rocky soil, you want to roll the surface after you've put the large seed down. You want to drag it once and roll it. When you're dealing with clover, chicory, alfalfa, brassicas, your turnips, your rape, those are all itty-bitty seeds. So the steps are a little bit different. You work it up, put all your fertilizer, soil correction in, just like you did for the other big seed. But instead of seeding at that point when it's light and fluffy, that's when you roll it or cultipack it one pass, make a firm seed bed, then broadcast your clovers, chicories, again, your small seed, and then re-roll or re-cultipack. You're literally just trying to take that small seed and dent it as if you took your thumb, put the seed on the ground, and pushed it down into the dirt so that the top crown of the seed is exposed to the sun, but the rest of the seed is surrounded by the soil. And that will quickly, at least in our species, we have 80, 90, 95% germination in all of our seed blends in our bags. That will quickly germinate within a week to 10 days, put a root down, and immediately establish itself.
Oh my goodness.
And that is very important. But if you were to drag clovers, chicory, small seed with a light, fluffy seed bed, the same thing happens is it sinks too deep into the seed bed and it lays there dormant, just like your grass and weed seedling did, until another day comes when you turn it and it starts being worked to the top of the soil. That will increase your germination 40%, upwards of 40% if you use that step in planting small seed or that step in the large seed. And cultipacking is very, very important step that a lot of people overlook or don't even realize the benefits of doing. So
40% more germination, that's 40% more food for the critters.
Yep.
So, Nick, I can't believe it, but we're at 30 minutes. So why don't you give a shout out to whomever that you want, and then we're going to wrap the show.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming on today to listen. If you have any further questions, you can contact me on the contact page at killerfoodplots.com. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram. I tell you, as always, it's a pleasure. I appreciate it, Bruce.
Thanks so much,
for having
Nick.
me on.
It's been a pleasure. So on behalf of thousands of listeners across North America, you just get some really good insight in what it takes, to grow good food, good groceries, but even more than that, there's some strategies and techniques that Nick shared with us today that you might not have heard from other people. So, hey, take some notes. Let me know how you feel. And if you'd like Nick back on, email me at whitetailrendezvous@gmail.com. Bruce Hutchin, your host, saying so long from Iowa Deer Classic. Thanks again, Nick.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Bruce. Thanks, everyone.
On the next episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, we're going to be talking with David Holder. Now, David and his wife and family run Raised Hunting. What's Raised Hunting all about? When it's about real people, real places, and real woods, and real situations with real deer.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.